The instability created perfect conditions to the supercell formation, explained meteorologist Elena Caruso. The hailstone size of the speed formation are extraordinary for this season. Several flights to Catania Fortenerosa Airport were delayed due to low visibility and lighting activity, while local trains between Palermo and Messina were suspended after debris covered the track. Farmers across the central Sicily have reported severe crop damage, particularly to vineyard and citrus grove. They distorted nearly half of the harvest, said vineyard owner Salvatore Gianto. In 13 years, I never seen hail like this. Video shared on social media showed rivers and white hail racing through the streets of Palermo, while the residents used shovels to clear pathway in the after of snowstorm. Power outages were reported in the multiple municipalities, and several coastal towns experienced shocked by intense flooding. Experts warn that such extreme events are becoming increasingly common. Mediterranean regions like Sicily are highest vulnerable in the climate experts, said climatologist Dr. Paolo Leone. Italy. This week violent hailstorm struck parts of the northern and central Italy and lashed golf ball-sized ice and town of transformed roads, vineyards and city squares into frozen rivers. Described by Meteorological as one of the most intense storms in the recent years, the disaster caused widespread damage to homes, vehicles and agriculture, leaving residents stranded, it is said, in fury. The hardest hit region were Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna and Tuscany. In Bologna, hail shattered windows and damaged roofs. In Milan, a wide streets of ice-covered streets completely paralyzing traffic. Sudden flooding added the chaos, flooding emergency service with the hundreds of rescue requests. Carlo Benedetti, a resident of Madeira, said it was terrified when in minutes the sky turned pitch black and the thousand near rows of ice were crashing down. The hailstones with such force they shattered titles and dented cars' bodies on the streets. According to Meteorological from the Italy Civil Protection Department, the storm was triggered by the violent collision between warm air from the Mediterranean and a cold front moving from the Central Europe. Businesses and restaurants suffered significant losers as water and ice flooding basements and outdoor terraces. The city farm landmarks from the Colosseum to Piazza Venezia, the brilliantly unrecognized shady streets of hail. Agriculture areas surrounding Rome also reported heavy damage. Farmers in Lazio said crops and grapes, olives and artichokes were devastated. Climatologists warned that such sudden and destructive storms are becoming more common across southern Europe due to climate change. The Mediterranean basin is heating faster on the global average, explained Dr. Elena Moretti of Italy National Meteorological Institute. This increases the energy available to violent thunderstorms. As cleanup operations continue, the city faces millions in damage and the stark warning about the vulnerable to extreme weather. The storm throughout Colosseum test 1 hour will likely be remembered as one of Rome's most severe hail events in the decades.
Oggi Desio come se regno l'alto forno.
Local farmers in the Lazio region reported severe damage on a vineyard and olive grove during accompanied harvest season. Social media flooded with the shocking footage on hail pelting on around Colosseum and Trastevere foundation with the thunder echoing across the sky. Many Romans tragically to hide their astonishment. "It's like the end of the world," said Maria, a shop owner in the Trastevere district. "The street turned completely white in an instant. I've never seen anything like that." Experts warn that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent as the climate patterns in southern Europe shift. "We are witnessing the Mediterranean region transformed into a source of violent storm," stated climatologist Elisa Romana. As snow removal crews cleared the ice debris, Rome felt that the aftermath of extreme weather damage and stark reminder of the event of Eternal City is not immune to natural fury.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso.
Hospitals reported on the sharp increase in importance of the bureaus and the minor factories. Businesses, especially cafes and open-air markets, suffered significant losses of the sudden food destroyed supplies to outdoor sitting areas. Farmers to the outskirts and the city also serious losses, and a vineyard and olive groves were destroyed by the storm. Video quickly spread on social media showed hailstorm bouncing off incident capables of the floating landmarks such as the Colosseum, shocking viewers around the world. Tourists caught on the storm described the experiences as apocalyptic. Climate experts warned that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent in Italy, pointing out the former warmer seas contributed the strong storm. As the cleanup efforts continue, Rome is styling the financial damage and reflection to the capital vulnerability to sudden climate shock. The Italian capital, more accustomed by scrolling heat wave, is stumbled after exploding hailstorm hit Rome, covering the streets with ice, destroying cars and causing chaos throughout the entire city. What began the heavy rain suddenly intensified it into the torrent and hailstorms, larger than the golf ball battering the city at nearly half an hour. When it means major landmarks such as the Colosseum and Spanish Steps and the Villa de Corsa was surrounded by the river of ice while traffic came to complete standstill. It was a winter had arrived violent incident, said Luca Romana, who abandoned her car near the Piazza Venezia. The hailstorm broke in glass through the roof when going to collapse. Emergency hotline were overwhelmed and firefighters rushed to more than 500 incidents across the capital. Foreign streets crushed vehicles, safe ground windows shattered, and several subway stations were flooded. At least 40 people were treated to injuries, mainly caused by broken glass and slippery falls. Hospitals in Trastevere and Termini reported overcrowded emergency rooms. The land were deepened on the gas field destroyed it. Power outage left more than 400,000 homes in the dark. A rail service were suspended and Palermo airport was severely disrupted. Businesses and county millions as losers with tourism, agriculture and fishing particularly hard hit. Cityly famous citrus groves, olive trees and vineyards were flooded, raising fears to flood and shortage. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni declared the flooding a national emergency, promising immediate funding to military support. "We stand with the Sicily," she said. European Union officials also planned to assist with the barriers linking to the disaster and urgent need to action on climate change. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying on severe Mediterranean storms, and warning seas are contributing to more intense rainfall. Dr. Rinaldi, a climatologist, said. What we are seeing in Sicily, a venial future is urgent action to take no taking. As the water began to rescind, thousands of people forced to plainfield dust to rebuilding. Standing outside her destroyed homes in Palermo, Servia Rosa Ferraro said with the tears in her eyes, "The Sicilians are strong, but the storm was broken our heart."
Guardate ragazzi!
Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her condolences and promised immediate government support. "We will not leave Sicily alone with this tragedy." The flood also caused significant economic damage. Vineyards, citrus grove, and olive farms are blackboard on Sicily economy, where flooded and agriculture groups warn of millions in losers. Businesses in the historic center of Palermo may be closed for the weeks and a half a month. The Italian Meteorological Service has linked in disaster to the Medican and Mediterranean cyclones similar to the Triton storm. Since when the climate change is exacerbating such phenomena as a warning sea contributing to heavier rains and a violent storm. Residents clearing debris are in shock. Standing outside the damaged barrier, Rosa Conte said, "Sicily is used to the hardship, but this is something else. We cannot fight this our own." Sicily was hit a severe storm that swept across the island overnight, causing torrential rain, storms, winds, and widespread flooding. Palermo, Catania, and several smaller towns were worst affected, with the streets thrown into raging rivers, and entire neighborhoods were left without power. Residents reported panic as the water flooded historic city center. "It was terrible. In a matter of minutes, the water rose above the car's doors. We had to abandon the vehicles," said Salvatore Russo, the driver from Palermo. Emergency service carried out dozens of rescue operations, including rescuers, families trapped in their homes, and motorists stuck in the underpasses. Authority temporarily closed schools and government offices in several municipalities as prediction to Sicily Civil Protection Agency declared a highest level of water alert. At least one hospital of Catania reported flooding in the lower floors, forcing staff and a relocate pedant. The storm also dealt a serious blow to agriculture, damaging olive groves, citrus, orange, and vineyards were left to bloodborne the island economy. Farmers estimated to damage of millions of euros, further complicating the situation in a region that already struggled with the drought to binging of a year. Flights to and from Palermo to Catania airports were delayed and cancelled, and ferry service between Sicily and mainland Italy was suspended to several hours due to rush seas. Meteorologists are linking this storm to a powerful Mediterranean cyclone, sometimes called the Medican, from the form to the warm seawater full intense weather system. Experts warn that the climate change is making such events more frequent and destructive. The president of the Sicily region promised rapid assistance to the affected communities, stressing the urgent need to strategic flood protection. This storm has once again demonstrated the vulnerability our island in us. "We must do decisively to protect life and livelihood," he said. The Italian island of Ischia near Naples have been devastated by powerful flood and landslides triggered by relentless rainfall. Torrents of water swept through the town, tearing impaired fluid, burying homes, smote, and leaving residents in shock at the state of destruction. In the town of Casamesola, Termini, one of the hardest hit era, houses were engulfed by the cascading mud and debris. It was like avalanches of water and the earth cascading down, said Rosa Espone, a resident who narrowly escaped with her family. In seconds, everything were on goes down. Authorities confirmed multiple deaths, with the several people still missing as such, and the rescue operations continue. Dozens of residents were injured, while hundreds and evacuation from the unstable buildings. Schools, shops, and businesses remain closed as emergency crews cleared blocked streets. Emergency snow cars overturned and a half buried with the rescue workers and volunteers did through their layers of mud with their hands to reach surface. Power outage and damaged water supplies have left many communities isolated. The island's still terrain combined with the days of heavy rain triggered a series of landslides that shut down mountains into the coastal town. Experts noted that devastation and uncontrolled construction have worsened island's vulnerability to such disaster. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni experienced condolences to victim families and pledged immediate aid, calling the disaster a national tragedy. Italian Civil Protection Agency has deployed helicopters, driver and special units to assist rescue force, with the local authority declared a state of emergency. The flood has also remained wider concern. Each popular tourist destination known for the hot spring and breeze is now facing questions about building safety and climate resilience. Local authority urged residents to stay at home and avoid travel to roads and rail, more driving conditions dangerous. Emergency services were also called to help with the deal in the aftermath of the storm, including clearing roads and ASF dissipated. The hail comes as Italy, like much of Europe, experienced unseasonably cold weather. Forecasts predict that the extreme weather could continue for several days, with some storms of heavy rain expected across the country. Although Rome is no stranger to extreme weather events, the sudden intensity and hailstorm cut off guard as residents begin the process to cleaning up and repairing the damage caused by the storm. They will adapt by keeping their close eye on weather forecast in the coming days. The storm, which has intensified in terrain and sea over the past few hours, has taken a characterized as a full-fledged cyclone. Winds around the ridge and sometimes exceeded gusts of 100 km/h at the sea was rule. In the coming days, severe storm will wake up to 5 to 6 meters high and peaks up to 8 meters are expected in the Mediterranean Sea between the southwestern provinces of Campania, especially Cilento and Calabria, as well over most of Sicily and the Ionian Sea and the entire Adriatic. Tomorrow they shift the low-pressure system towards the Adriatic with a mainly effect to eastern basins. So let's take a look at the details. This is not the first time Sicily was faced with the wrath of nature, but experts are calling the storm one of the most destructive weather events in decades. The last such disaster occurred in 2029, where deadly floods and landslides killed 37 people in Messina, but this time the combination of heavy rainfall, wind and widespread infrastructure damage made the consequences even more serious. According to preliminary government report, more than 1,200 homes were damaged, 14 roads remain closed and 7 bridges have been structure damage. Insurance companies are already inundated with the claims of many families without insurance to continue on compensation from the state. This storm was particularly dangerous because it suddens. Meteorologists issue a yellow alert just hours before the first downpour. By that time, it was too late many communities to prepare. Critics are now to call into fast weather warning system to better preparedness of natural disaster, especially in the southern region, which is often overlooking. Satellite images show in a grim picture. As the sun rose over the devastation streets, scenes of resilience began to emerge. Volunteers from neighboring towns arrived the shovels, pumps, and food supplies. In Catania University, standard formed human chain to help clear debris to home of elderly residents. Church bells rang in solidarity of many communities, helped nightly prayers to injure and displace it. One image of Red Sicily flag flying proudly over the flooded town hall became a national symbol of strength. Local media called at a room and declared a state of emergency to obtain additional funds in the rescue to rapid reconstruction. Engineers are now installing bridges and roads, help workers to warn into possible communication flow to overflows, seen and standing water. Meteorologists at Veto Italia say a storm system may be reckoning the residual rains and extended to continue for several more days. The ground is standing with the water. Warning climatologist Dr. Elena Ferraro even tell additional rainfall could cause new floods and landslides. Environmental activists are calling this storm a wake-up call. This is not just a random error, said Lucia Marinel of Climate Italia. This is the result of decades of neglecting environmental policy of urban planning. We must change now. International support has begun to arrive at the form of offer assistance from the European Union of neighboring countries. Italian celebrities, soccer players, and Pope have been experiencing this solidarity. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern regions of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, boost their banks, and inundate towns and villages. This latest episode of flooding has left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy, and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away, and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po of the Angle, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency service to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads, and isolated communities. In Venice, the city is too familiar to high water levels. Flood definitions will put the test. The iconic Mos Barrage, designed to protect the city with the rising tides, were activated shelters to mitigate the Venice from the significant damage. However, other areas in the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to fare the higher ground.
Putain!
Alors je m'excuse, c'est que on a un déluge là. Oh,
Allez, ça y est, il n'y a plus d'élèves.
In Venice, a city all too familiar, and the high water level flood definitions were put on the test. The iconic Mos Barrage, designed to protect the crisis from the rising tides, were activated, sheltered the Venice from significant damage. However, other areas of the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in the Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to higher ground. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in several regions, mobilizing rescue workers to deploy to army to assist in evacuation efforts. Civil Protection Authority have urged people to affected areas to remain cautious to offshore warning as more rain forecast in the coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in the affected areas, expressing her solidarity with the victims and pledging government support to reconfusion efforts. This is national emergency, and we are working closely to local authority to ensure the safety for all residents, she said. Climate experts that such extreme weather events could become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography topography and particularly vulnerable to affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, poor mountain infrastructure and urban expansion into food-poor areas has exacerbated the impact of recent storms. A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and flash floods swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romana, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrage had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. In just a few hours, some areas received more rainfall than they normally do into entire month. Schools and government official and affected areas were closed to precautions and civil protection until the disrupted to assist the damage and assist in the cleanup. In Palermo, several unprecedented were flooded rapid cars and landslides were reported in towns located on hills. Experts warned that such intense and frequent storms could become normal in southern Italy. Climatologists are urging authorities and citizens to strengthen infrastructure and emergency preparedness on the Mediterranean region continue to face the worst effect of global warming. As Sicily begins the cleanup, the storm severals are not yet another stark reminder on a growing instability of the nature and urgent need to action to ensure environmental sustainability.
Ai mare, estic en el Mercadona de Berreguar comprant. Mireu això. Està tot inundant-se. Ai mare! Que batem a...
Sicily has always faced extreme weather conditions, say climatologist Lucia De Santis, but the scale of intensity of this phenomenon is unprecedented. The sea surface temperature is at 3 Celsius above average and they contributed to strongest storm. The Italian Red Cross has launched a campaign to collect food, clothing and foods. Donations are accepted online in location collection center. Despite the destruction have also been stories by heroism. In Palermo, a police office warning through the flood waters a rescue an elderly couple trapped in the flooded car. "We couldn't leave them there. The water was rising fast," he said. As the cleanup beginning to Sicily starts to recover, officials warn the crisis far from over. Weather warning reminding the police and another storm front could in southern Italy by the weekend. Rome was hit a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned a cobbled streets into the city rivers and shocking residents. The storm, which hit during the evening rush hour, brought golf-sized ball hailstones, torrential rain and strong winds of the city caused significant disruption and damage. When the minutes measured through the faces, such as Via del Corso, were covered in ice. bringing traffic at standstill. Cars were damaged, wideships were shattered, and motorcyclists were forced to abandon their vehicles. It was like a bombardment, stones from the sky, said Marco De Santis, who took shelter in the café where the storm reached. Public transport were paralyzed, several metro stations were flooded, and tram service were suspended. At Fiumicino Airport, flights were delayed after the runway were covered with slush and ground strength roads to clear the debris. The city's historic landmark also suffered significant damage from the storm. Tourists took shelter under the arches of Colosseum and up its antient area to layers into ice accumulated to steps to Spanish stamps and Piazza Venezia. Emergency service rushed to protect archaeological sites, fearing the water seepage could damage the fragile structures. Hospitals reported dozens of injuries, mostly from the slippers on the ice sidewalks or being stuck on fallen bridges. Power outage left thousands of homes in darkness. In the flash floods, inundated underground parking lots of basements in low-lying areas such as Trastevere and Toscana. Meteorologists explained that the storm formed that the warm Mediterranean air collided with the cold front moving south from northern Europe, creating strong updrafts that caused unusually large hailstorms. Experts warn that due to climate change, such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense throughout Italy. Rome, Italy. Rome was thrown into chaos as a sudden violent hailstorm struck at the city, transforming its cobblestone streets into rivers of ice and leaving a scene of destruction and astonishment. The storm arrived without warning late in the afternoon, bringing hailstones the size of large coins, thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. Meteorologists from Italy's National Meteorological Agency described the phenomenon as one of the most intense collective storms to hit the Lazio region in recent years. Senior meteorologist Dr. Elena Moretti stated, "The combination of extreme heat and the sudden cold front triggered explosive atmospheric instability. Within the minutes, the sky darkened, and a hail pounded the city with a different force. Vehicles were damaged, windshields shattered, and roofs became impossible under a layer of ice. Fire departments received over 1,400 emergency calls, responded to rescue trapped drivers and pump out water from subway station and underground parking garage. Rome Civil Protection Agency urged residents to stay indoors and flash flood hits at the San Giovanni Trastevere. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm was part of the weather system moving across central city, Italy, where warm Mediterranean air collided vitally with a cold front from the northern Europe. It was an explosive mix, said meteorologist Andrea Bianchi. The sudden temperature drop triggered intense convection, prompted hail and unusual sights of this time of year. Shops and restaurants in Trastevere accompanied forest suffered flood with outdoor treacherous terraces and markets still destroyed. Several hospitals reported minor injuries, mostly from the people slipping or brain stuck in fallen debris. It lasted barely 20 minutes, said cafe owner Aliza Romano, but the damages caused local like hurricane airspace. The storm aftermath left Rome's historic landmarks coated in ice and a rail haunting sights. Tourists shaped photos to Colosseum and Spanish steps, gilding the under street lines, and the city crews walked through the night to clear debris and restore normal traffic. Experts warn that extreme weather like this could become more frequent. Mediterranean storms are intensified due to climate change, said climatologist Dr. Lorenzo Conti. Rome may see more violent hail and flash flood in the recent heat. As a calm returned by morning, Romans awoke the melted hail and the city shaking the yet another reminder to nature growing unpredictability. Chaos and disbelief swept through the Italian capital as a ferocious hailstorm tore across Rome, blanketing streets in ice, flooding tunnels and leaving residents trapped in their cars and homes. The storm, which struck suddenly in the late afternoon, turned into eternal city, into the witness described it as a frozen battlefield. Meteorologists said the event was triggered by a clash between the warm Mediterranean air and rapidly advanced Arctic front, a combination that prodded towering thunderstorm and the severe hail. Within moments, hailstones the size of large coins plumped the city, shattered windows and dented vehicles across entire neighborhood. I've lived in Rome, and world life I never seen anything like it, said 34-year-old taxi driver Marco De Santis. The storm unleashed torrents in the city water through the several districts, including Trastevere, San Giovanni, and Ossa, where drainage system was overwhelmed. Firefighters reported to more than 1,500 emergency calls, rescuing stranded motorists and pumped water from metro station and underground garage. Power cuts hit multiple areas, while traffic across A19 ring road ground to half an hour. Photos and videos shared online showed rivers of ice flowing through the incident, cobblestone streets and half-building knee-deep around the famous landmark. The Trevi Foundation overflowed with a ruin of water, while parts of Via del Corso resembled glacier.
Nein, lass es.
Ja, ich lasse es.
Rome, a city more accustomed to the golden sun, said that the ice storm was hit by an unusual hailstorm that covered its streets and the thick layer of ice. The sudden downpour, which lasted then an hour, brought daily life to the sudden health, forced residents and tourists to try to understand the extent of the damage. Meteorologists' incidents confirmed the hailstorm was caused by the collisions of warm Mediterranean air masses with a sharp cold front from the northern Europe. Strong updrafts formed hailstones the size of a golf ball, which damaged roofs, smashed shop windows, and left cars covered in them. It caused chaos and transformation. Several metro stations were forced to close due to flooding and major roads turned into rivers and melted slush. Emergency service reported rescued dozens of people trapped in their cars, while firefighters rushed to clear a fallen bridge and restore blocked drainage system. In 30 years of service, I have never seen a Rome suffer so much from ice, said the fire brigade representative. Hospitals across the capital treated dozens of people who were injured after slipper of ice sidewalks. Tourists visited landmarks such as Piazza Venezia and Spanish Steps, described surreal scene. We thought it was snowing, but the hail became so heavy that it hurt, recalled Anna, a tourist from Germany. Farmers in Lazio Rome was left stranded after extraordinary hailstorm turned in the entire city into the local described the sudden winter in September. Streets across the capital, including area near the Colosseum and Piazza Venezia, were blanketed a thick layer of ice, disrupting traffic and caused widespread astonishment. The violent storm started with a little warning, planted the city with a hailstorm the size of a walnut. Within minutes, the rain were overwhelmed, leaving the flash flood in low-lying districts. Motorists were forced to abandon cars and ice storm swept through the several avalanches, while public buses struggled to navigate blocked roads. Emergency service reported dozens of calls to assistance. Firefighters were deployed to clear fallen branches and rescue drivers trapped flooded in underpasses. No fatalities were confirmed, but several minor injuries occurred as people slipped on the ice-coated pavement. One resident told local media, "I lived in Rome 40 years. I never seen hail like this. I felt that the city had been dropped into another season." Meteorologists explained that the year was triggered by a clash of warm Mediterranean air with a powerful cold front from the northern Europe, creating ideal conditions from the hail formations. The Sicilian city of Palermo is trying to recover after the violent storm that caused chaos throughout the region, bringing record rainfall, destructive winds and widespread flooding. In a matter of hours, almost a month of worst of rainfall caused weather overflow and the streets flood. Footage from the city shows cars floating like toys, buses stuck in the middle on the roads, and fire-ridden residents seek refuge in the rooftop. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to escape, said Giovanni Russo, whose family was rescued to firefighters from their flooded apartment. At least 5 people were killed and dozens were injured. More than 200 residents were evacuated from their homes, and thousands were left without power due to damage in power lines caused by palm trees and lightning strikes. The historic center of Palermo, known for their architecture and the live market, was illy emptied, businesses closed to tourists at the day hotels. Hospitals are overwhelmed, treating cases to hypothermia, injuries and shock. Emergency shelters have been set up in school and community halls to accommodate families who have lost their homes. The major called in a war storm in history, and their request urged assistance to the native level. In addition to Palermo rural area, the Sicily were also affected. Vineyard, olive farms and a citrus orange which are vital to the island economy were destroyed, rising concerns about the significant losses and agriculture. Transport link was paralyzed. Palermo airport suspended flights to several hours, and a ferry rail service was suspended due to flooding and landslides. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the collisions of warm Mediterranean waters with a cold front, increasingly common phenomenon linking to climate change. Italian Civil Protection Agency warning that Sicily is now one of the regions in Europe most vulnerable to extreme weather conditions.